Hi, my name is Layla, and today I'll be talking about food and health myths and misconceptions. Okay, so I first want to start by talking about the food pyramid and its history. And as you might know, we were told that the food pyramid should be an example of healthy eating, and that by eating more foods from the bottom and less from the top, that we would be healthier. However, the food pyramid is extremely problematic because its design was not backed by science or data, and instead, it's a reflection of the interests of major U.S. agriculture companies. The original food pyramid was actually designed by Lewis Light, who is a nutrition expert, and she created this pyramid based on fruits and vegetables. However, when she submitted it to the USDA, they changed it to promote a diet that would profit the food industry and not people's health. It doesn't make sense that the bulk of our food should be processed, low nutritional carbohydrates instead of high fiber, high vitamin fruits and vegetables. And since the government has been promoting these heart healthy vegetable oils and heavy consumption of refined starches, we have seen explosion in rates of heart disease, obesity, and type 2 diabetes. Before the food pyramid was created, around 30 to 40% of American adults could be considered healthy, but currently only 12% of US adults can be considered healthy. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about grains. When Nixon was president, the US agreed to sell millions of bushels of grains to the Soviet Union, but at that time there was a poor growing season, which led to an increase in price of grain. To remedy this, the USDA developed policies to increase grain production. This caused there to be an incredible surplus of grains. So when the food pyramid was created, the government saw it as an opportunity to deal with this surplus of grains. This would explain why Lewis Light's recommendation of 2 to 4 servings of grains per day increased to 6 to 11 when she gave it to the USDA to look over. The USDA heavily subsidizes corn and soybean growers who receive the bulk of $15 billion in annual farm subsidies. This means that the government incentivizes farmers to grow corn and soy. On the other hand, U.S. fruit and vegetable growers receive little government subsidies. So, what are the effect of grains on the body? Well, grains, particularly whole grains, are an important source of carbohydrates, fiber, vitamins, and minerals, such as iron and magnesium. They provide substantial energy, and these can be found in whole grains, oats, brown rice, quinoa, for example. And these are more nutritious than refined grains because they retain their fiber and nutrient rich bran and germ. Whole grains can support digestive health due to their fiber content, regulate blood sugar levels, and lower the risk of heart disease. Refined grains, however, such as white bread and pasta, are processed and stripped of their nutrients and fiber, leading to quicker spikes in blood sugar, which may contribute to weight gain and an increase of chronic diseases like type 2 diabetes and heart disease. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about saturated fats. After World War II, Americans began heavily smoking, and doctors even promoted it. Because of this, heart disease became the leading cause of death in America. President Eisenhower, who was a heavy smoker at the time, suffered a heart attack, and scientists attributed his heart attack to saturated fats, not knowing about the harms of smoking. Even though saturated fats had been consumed by humans for thousands of years prior, scientists blamed them for a modern disease. In 1978, the American Heart Association was in fact even sponsored by Procter and Gamble, the creators of Crisco, which is a highly processed vegetable shortening. This is a part of the reason that saturated fats have been vilified and replaced with unsaturated, heart-healthy vegetable oils. Most unsaturated fats, such as canola, sunflower, and vegetable oil, are high in omega 6 fatty acids, which is a type of polyunsaturated fat that in low quantities is fine, but in high quantities throws off your body's ratio of omega 6 to omega 3 fatty acids, and this leads to inflammation in the body. This is where the myth of these oils being heart healthy and lowering cholesterol comes from because our body does need a small amount of omega 6 fatty acids. The chronic inflammation that most Americans suffer from is due to overconsumption of these oils, mostly in the form of processed or fried foods, and this has led to an influx of arthritis, heart disease, metabolic syndrome, strokes, and type 2 diabetes in this country. So, what do saturated fats do to our bodies? Well, saturated fats are primarily found in animal products like butter, cheese, and meat, and some plant based oils like coconut and palm oil. And these fats are essential for our bodies for their various functions, such as hormone production, cell membrane structure, and the absorption of fat soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K. Recent research suggests that modern consumption of these saturated fats might not be as harmful as previously thought. In fact, they support healthy cholesterol levels when balanced with other fats like monounsaturated fats. An excessive amount of saturated fats, particularly from processed meats and high processed foods, are linked to higher levels of LDL or bad cholesterol, which can increase risk of cardiovascular disease and stroke. Okay, now let's talk about the effect of seed oils on our bodies. So, polyunsaturated fats, such as vegetable and canola oil, like I mentioned, are rich in omega 6 polyunsaturated fatty acids, which are essential for our body but should be balanced with omega 3 fatty acids. They are often used in cooking and processed foods due to their low cost and high smoking points. Positive in moderation, omega 6 fats, when balanced with omega 3s, can support brain function, reduce inflammation, and improve heart health. However, overconsumption of omega 6 fatty acids, especially when not balanced with omega 3s, can promote inflammation, which is linked to chronic conditions like obesity and diabetes. Additionally, many seed oils are highly processed and refined, which can increase the risk of oxidative stress and damaged cells and tissues, which is linked to cancer. The healthy ratio of omega 6 to omega 3 fatty acids for humans is about 2 to 1. However, the average ratio of these fatty acids that Americans consume is between 15 to 1 and 20 to 1. Okay, red meat. Is red meat bad for you? The study I looked at was highly thorough and controlled for as many variables as possible. In this, researchers evaluated the relationship between unprocessed red meat consumption and 6 selected disease outcomes. They concluded that unprocessed red meat intake had weak evidence of an association with increased risk of breast cancer, colorectal cancer, IDH, and type 2 diabetes, and had no evidence of association with ischemic stroke and hemorrhagic stroke. The quality of evidence stating that red meat is harmful to our health is low. The demonization of red meats is based on meta-analyses of poorly designed experiments that do not control for confounding variables or healthy user bias. The healthy user bias is the idea that people who engage in behaviors perceived as healthy are more likely to engage in other behaviors perceived as healthy. So, in this context, it would be that because Americans were told red meat is bad, the people who do consume lots of red meats are more likely to engage in unhealthy activities such as smoking, drinking, not exercising, and eating fewer fruits and vegetables. The opposite of this is that because we were told red meats are unhealthy, that people who are trying to be healthy will consume less red meats, but they will also be exercising, eating more fruits and vegetables, and taking care of their health. Most Americans consuming lots of red meat are eating fast food hamburgers, fried in seed oils, and having a large soda with this. Red meat is not the issue with America's health. There is no strong evidence of people eating red meat in the context of other whole foods causing cancer or other diseases. Numerous studies suggest that the determining factor in our health is our gut microbiome. People who commonly consume red meat are also typically eat fewer fruits and vegetables, soluble fiber, and eat more processed and refined flour, sugar, and seed oils, which all negatively impact our gut microbiome. So, what are the benefits of red meat? Well, red meat is a great source of vitamin B12, vitamin D, iron, zinc, magnesium, cobalt, and more. In addition to this, red meat has significantly more B12, iron, and zinc than white meat does. Grass-fed meat, like beef, contains equal amounts of unsaturated and monosaturated fats with a small amount of polyunsaturated fat, and this balance remains consistent regardless of the animal's diet, making it a better choice than poultry. So why should we care? Well, anemia is commonly due to a deficiency in B12 and iron. Globally, around 30% of women aged 15 to 49 are affected by anemia. In 2021, for women of reproductive age, about 34% 4% of women in this age group had anemia compared to 11.3% of men. For pregnant women, about 37% of pregnant women are affected by anemia, and 40% of children aged 6 to 59 months are affected by anemia. Our diet and red meat intake has a lot to do with our ability to get the nutrients that are essential for our bodies. People also who are commonly scared of cholesterol, and because red meat increases our cholesterol, people tend to avoid it. We don't need to be scared of cholesterol, however. In fact, about 80% of women experience hormone imbalances, which impacts their fertility. There are likely many reasons for this, but one of them is that cholesterol is the building block for our hormones. Okay, so let's talk about cows and sustainable agriculture. So all cows are fed grass for the majority of their lives. For feedlot cattle, they consume grass for the first 6 to 9 months and then switch to grains or corn or both. And grass-fed consume grass obviously their entire life. So regenerative agriculture, which integrates cattle grazing, restores ecosystems, benefits soil health, enhances resilience to flooding and droughts, and potential carbon sequestration. The issue with this type of farming is that it requires more land. A recent study has found that soil is home to about 59% of all life on Earth, from an insect feeding on the soil surface to a tiny microbe nestled in the soil pore. Some ways that humans have been destroying soil is by tilling it and plowing it and spraying it with pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides. Cows help restore healthy soils, conserve sensitive species, and enhance overall ecological function. Proper cattle grazing management can even help mitigate climate change. Okay, lastly, I want to talk to you guys about how Big Pharma profits. So, pharmaceutical companies receive substantial U.S. government assistance in the form of publicly funded basic research and tax breaks, yet they continue to charge insane prices for medications. Billions of taxpayer dollars go into the creation and marketing of new drugs. Pharmaceutical companies' profit margins receive significant bumps when they launch new drugs, specifically specialty drugs, used to treat life threatening conditions. These drugs often cost more than most Americans can afford. Even though pharmaceutical companies receive taxpayer subsidies, drug prices keep increasing rapidly. The pharmaceutical companies use government subsidies as a way to purchase influence over the media we consume through advertisement. In the US, the regulatory control and public recommendations for food and drug fall under the same federal agency, the FDA, which seems like a conflict of interest. There is a financial incentive for the FDA to promote foods that cause chronic illness because they treat illnesses that they created. Okay, before I give you my final takeaways for this presentation, if you're interested in any of the topics I discussed, I will leave all my resources in the description below, including a TED Talk that's excellent. It talks about the corrupt history of the food pyramid. Okay, so here are my top 3 takeaways from this presentation. 1. Eat more red meats, fruits, and vegetables, and try to limit the amount of processed foods and seed oils that you consume. 2. Help the environment by buying local produce. And 3. Learn more about the history of food and use critical thinking when evaluating food recommendations and marketing. Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope that you all learned something and can be more confident when making decisions about your health.